Pete, a sprightly 63-year-old, was ready for a new adventure: yoga. He had always been active, enjoying morning jogs and light exercises, but yoga was a whole new world for him. The idea of joining a yoga class had been on his mind for a while, and now he was finally taking the plunge. He had always considered himself fit, often jogging around the neighborhood and lifting light weights at the local gym. But the idea of contorting his body into pretzel-like shapes both intrigued and terrified him. He had seen pictures of people doing complex poses and wondered if he could ever reach that level of flexibility. Still, he was determined to give it a go. Pete believed that trying new things was essential for staying young at heart. The day of his first class finally arrived, and Pete found himself riddled with a mixture of excitement and nerves. He walked into the studio, mat in hand, ready to embrace this new challenge. He'd heard tales of toned physiques and newfound flexibility, stories that both inspired and intimidated him, and he couldn't help but wonder if he could achieve the same. As he watched the other participants effortlessly move through their poses, Pete felt a spark of determination. This was just the beginning of his yoga journey. First things first, Pete needed the essentials: a yoga mat and a water bottle. He knew that having the right gear was crucial for a good start. He rummaged through his cupboards and found an old camping mat. Close enough, he figured. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to do for now. For his water bottle, he grabbed a massive insulated flask, more suited for a trek in the Himalayas. It was oversized, but it would keep him hydrated. Armed with his makeshift yoga gear, Pete set off to the studio. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he walked. He'd chosen a beginner's class, hoping for a gentle introduction to the world of downward dogs and sun salutations. The class looked welcoming and friendly. He just hoped he wouldn't make a complete fool of himself. Pete took a deep breath, ready to embrace the challenge and find his inner peace. Upon arriving at the studio, Pete was greeted by the sight of lithe individuals effortlessly gliding into impressive poses. He, on the other hand, felt like a bull in a china shop, his camping mat sticking out like a sore thumb. As the class commenced, Pete struggled to keep up. The instructor spoke of finding inner peace and connecting with one's breath, but all Pete could focus on was the searing pain in his hamstrings. Despite the initial hurdles, Pete persevered. He had always been the kind of person who didn't back down from a challenge, and yoga was no exception. The first few classes were tough, with his body protesting every stretch and bend. He clumsily moved from one pose to the next, his limbs seemingly having a mind of their own. Each transition felt like a battle, but Pete was determined to push through, his attempts resembling more of a comedic performance than graceful yoga flows. The instructor's calm and soothing voice guided the class, but Pete's movements were anything but serene. His fellow classmates, initially surprised by his antics, couldn't help but chuckle at his good-natured struggles. Laughter filled the room, creating a light-hearted atmosphere that made the experience enjoyable for everyone. By the end of the class, drenched in sweat and feeling thoroughly stretched, if not a little sore, Pete emerged with a newfound appreciation for yoga. He felt a sense of accomplishment, having pushed his limits and survived the session. He realized it wasn't about achieving perfect poses or contorting his body into impossible shapes. It was about the journey, the effort, and the small victories along the way. It was about challenging himself, having a laugh, and embracing the journey, wobbly bits and all. The camaraderie in the class and the shared experience made it all worthwhile. As Pete ambled out of the studio, he thought to himself, maybe this yoga thing isn't so bad after all. He felt a sense of peace and relaxation that he hadn't experienced in a long time. He realized that age was just a number, and it was never too late to try something new. With a smile on his face and a spring in his step, Pete looked forward to his next yoga class, ready to embrace the challenge once more.